Dan Willis here, and we're talking about how long does it take to repair credit. Now, this is part 2 of our videos here. If you missed the first part, we're going to include a link in the description below, and we're specifically looking at how to remove those credit report negatives, that bad credit history, because that's the most common cause of a low credit score. And we're going to need to deploy your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA. This law and legislation entitles you and every consumer to dispute any item and challenge any item on your credit report that you believe is inaccurate, questionable, or made in error. Now, the first step, of course, is to get all 3 current copies of your credit reports from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. We next need to review these and look for those negatives, that derogatory information, because that's what's dragging down your credit score. And potentially, we're going to remove that information by disputing it with the credit bureaus. There's 3 ways to file your dispute. You can do it online, over the phone, or by mail. Once the credit bureaus get your dispute, and they have to deem it valid, which we'll discuss here momentarily, then they're going to conduct an investigation. During an investigation, they're going to contact the company, the lender, or the creditor that's reporting that bad credit about you, and they're going to ask them to verify the account. Now, it's shockingly common how many of these lenders, creditors, and companies won't verify consumer accounts. And if that is the result, then according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the credit bureaus must remove that item from your credit report. Now, next we're looking at the big challenge where most people just ultimately give up and live with bad credit is getting the credit bureaus to deem your dispute valid and conduct an investigation. Most often they're going to find it invalid, and this is for a few reasons. But the credit bureaus are just like your local coffee shop. They're for-profit private businesses. And when they investigate consumer disputes, they're only spending money that's otherwise profit. And for some unexplainable, uncomprehendable reason other than the typical politicians and their politricks, they decided to give the credit bureaus the authority to decide which consumer disputes are valid and which ones are invalid. This makes no sense at all. There's a very clear and apparent conflict of financial interest because the credit bureaus, they can either be this profitable or this profitable. It's not rocket science here. The credit bureaus typically receive an estimated 8 million consumer disputes annually. Now, this has created a system where the credit bureaus are virtually guaranteed to find your dispute invalid. Their goal is to frustrate you with the hopes that you'll just give up and live with bad credit. Now, the politicians today say this is in direct violation of federal law. But it sure ain't the first. Not too many years ago, the credit bureaus were required by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to set up toll-free dispute phone numbers to handle consumer dispute requests. But what they weren't required to do is to actually hire staff members to answer these phones. There's consumer reports claiming they waited over 30 hours on hold. And yes, the FTC came in again and fined all 3 credit bureaus collectively. And they've done that over and over and over again for violating consumer rights. The credit bureaus are not your friend. They're not the government. And they have zero interest in fixing individuals' errors, blatant errors, total mistakes, or even investigating potentially inaccurate information. Now, according to a recent 60 Minutes story in Steve Croft, if you call in today, you're very likely to talk to Kevin living in India, who's going to instruct you to file your dispute online at the website. Further, when they actually investigate an item, if on the rare chance you get your dispute deemed valid, the people that are investigating live in South America, the Philippines, or in India. Now, this system, these policies and these procedures for essentially ignoring consumer disputes has given rise and has birthed the professional credit repair industry. Credit repair companies, for the most part, you can do the exact same thing. It's just a matter of how much frustration, how much time are you willing to invest with this, or would you prefer to have somebody else do it for you, much like getting your hair cut. So if you're cutting your own hair, then you're going to have to be prepared and embrace to deal with some very frustrating hoop jumping, or instead you can turn to a professional credit repair company. This is Dan Willis. We're going to include a link in the description below over to an article for the full story about how long it takes to repair credit. We also have a free report available there, the 7 proven ways to boost your credit score. Please have a wonderful day. Please subscribe and join our congregation, and looking forward to talking to you again here soon.